don't know me, I'm the Vice President of the Campus Weather Service. I'm filling in for Andy today, who couldn't make it because he's on a plane right now. Right here we have Penn State alumnus Michael Spagnolo, and I'm sure he has a lot to tell all of us about what we can expect.
All right, thank you guys for having me. I'm Michael Spagnolo. I'm a state meteorologist with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and I graduated this time last year in December, so a newer alumni. Before I get into actual Pennsylvania weather, because we do have a little bit to talk about, just a few other things going on in the weather world. First, they're launching one of the first of, I believe, 4 new polar orbiting weather satellites. The next generation of them, we've got GOES 16 that's been launched, but they're also putting up some new polar orbiting satellites. So that launches tonight or tomorrow, early tomorrow morning. I believe that's right, 4:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're up and want to watch a night launch, it'll be in California, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of streams going on. So hopefully the weather will allow that to happen. And then we'll have apparently 3 more coming along the way in the coming year or so. And then we're also officially in a La Nina, I believe is this morning. Climate Prediction Center put out a La Nina advisory, which is quite different than what we thought we were going to be in the spring. I have to put this up here because I did tropical stuff this whole summer, and in the spring, I think this was April, this was the current thinking for the upcoming hurricane season based on the fact that a strong El Nino would begin through the fall and into the wintertime. And obviously those predictions didn't quite work out so well. The predictions they made once the season started into June were on point. But earlier into the season, we were a little off on what we were expecting. There is still some tropical stuff going on. Rina is now post-tropical. That if you weren't even paying attention, if you didn't log on to hurricanes.gov, then you probably wouldn't have even noticed that this was a thing. And then, the basin for this time of year, we may squeak out another storm. Climatologically, we'll have one more system. Our average last date for our hurricane or named storm is usually around by the end of November. So we may squeak out one more, especially depending on what happens in the Caribbean later this month. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get one more named storm, which will make it, I believe, 19 named storms. We just had 18, although Rina was tropical depression 19. We had the potential tropical cyclone that doesn't really count as a named system. So even though it was classified in the software database that it was issued advisory by the Hurricane Center, it's not going to get counted as a tropical system. So I just found that was compared to where we were standing going into the hurricane season and where we came out. Was pretty different thinking. We also had that severe weather outbreak that's happened between now and in your last weather briefing. So earlier in the week, I believe they confirmed that tornado in Erie, and they confirmed 2 other tornadoes near the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. I don't know the details if those actually tracked into Pennsylvania or not. Any of you Campus Weather Service folks have seen the reports on that yet. But that activity a good squall line came into parts of northwestern Pennsylvania. So I just came from Tallahassee, Florida, and we had a little cool stretch. I guess at the end of October there around Halloween, we had a couple cool nights, but the last week or so that heat had been building and we were getting back into, yes, Marissa?
What is a cool night to you in Tallahassee?
Cool night to us would probably be anything below 60. Anything below 60 would be considered a cool night. During the winter time, it gets pretty regular for us to be down below the 60-degree mark, but still here into the fall, that would be cool nights. And we actually had a few locations at Panhandle have readings into the upper 30s. But the heat had been building again when I left. We were back getting towards middle and upper 80s. We had like 87 degrees, I think, or yesterday, and the dew point was coming back up towards the 70s. So it was just starting to get a little unpleasant there now for into November. But a little cold front was coming through down there. So I'm also appreciative that Mother Nature has allowed me to have a little Arctic outbreak. This will probably be the coldest weather I have until I come up here again, because we're certainly not going to see anything like this coming the next year. And I can say I'm going to enjoy the upcoming cold because I can go home at the end of the weekend back to 80 degrees. So, but nonetheless, a good Arctic outbreak is coming. It's heading right from the far Arctic. So we're going to have a pretty good disturbance coming on. And spoiler alert, before I even get into briefing and breaking down the weather, there's the National Weather Service forecast outlook. So it's definitely going to be cold, and we'll break this down here in a moment. So last week when I was getting ready to start putting stuff together for this briefing, just looking at what the Climate Prediction Center had and looking at their experimental products they had for, I guess it was actually earlier in the month. These were issued October 3rd and October 13th. This is what their outlooks were for last week and this week. There at the end of October into the first week of November. They were thinking a good chance of above average temperatures and then equal chances to maybe a little drier than normal across the state of Pennsylvania. And obviously, if you look at last week, Temperatures were near average, if not above, especially above average on the eastern half of the state, closer to average in the western half of the state. But if you look at temperature difference for this upcoming week, it's probably going to be not like that at all. It's going to be below average. So they kind of split the difference there. They definitely got the pattern right for last week. I don't know about so much for this week, but we'll see how they equal out since this outbreak is only going to be a couple of days. So we'll see how this shapes up in the long term of that 2-week average to see how they head out. I just like to look at their experimental products to see what, how things are going out because they are experimental. So we got to see how well they're working to see if they will become fully operational. And as far as precipitation goes, you guys had your good rain event last week, I guess it was. Finally had one of your biggest rains in quite a while. So that's definitely pushed numbers up to around average and above average across the state. So again, looking back over in the week, I was having my fingers crossed. Am I going to get to see a snowflake while I'm up here? Am I not? The models were going back and forth over it, whether the high pressure was going to be right over for the football game or a little disturbance was going to be coming through, maybe a little coastal low. These were all GFS runs from earlier in the week, but they've kind of narrowed that down now. We're going to have high pressure right overhead, and that's going to allow some cold nights because it's a cold air mass coming in right from the Arctic. So we'll pull up a few weather models here using the tropical tidbits. This is the 850 millibar vorticity. Pretty good shortwave, a good cold front you can see here, a little disturbance coming through to the north. Most of the forcing with this Arctic cold front is going to be towards our north. So we're really going to, while the cold air mass at the low levels will be working its way, a surface front through the state of, or not Florida, state of Pennsylvania, we're still, most of the energy for maybe a snow squall or some, a brief downpour is definitely going to be up more towards the north. And of course up there it's going to be all snow. So potentially a pretty good snow squall across portions of the upstate New York. But you can see that most of that energy stays to the north and we just get a weak surface front through here. So the models are not too excited about getting any precipitation here into central Pennsylvania, but with a little bit of northwest flow, I'm not too, I'm not gonna be too surprised if we do get some of that precipitation. I know the herd that's been running up on the map wall does show the line, a little snow squall, rain snow showers making it right into central Pennsylvania and then breaking up along the ridge. So we'd probably see a little bit of something spit out of the sky here, and then it breaks up as it gets into the eastern half of Pennsylvania. But the NAM run from this morning, again, you can see most of that forcing gets confined up to the north, where there'll be pretty good snow squall coming into upstate New York. But a little bit, it starts to break up as it gets more towards central Pennsylvania. So a flurry or a snow shower is definitely possible here. I don't think we're going to get any snow squall. That'll be confined to far north central Pennsylvania if they got any brief, heavy accumulating snowfall. And most of this activity behind it will probably be more related to lake effect activity than the actual cold front passage and the forcing from the cold front itself. We're going to have a really brief window to get some lake effect snow, just because that high pressure is going to be building in so quick and it's going to be coming right overhead. That's going to be, we're not going to have a lot of wind, and there's going to be, varying winds with height. So it's going to be hard to get that unidirectional flow off of the lakes. It's going to be a pretty small window to get that. If I have these pulled up here, this is the Euro at different levels here. So these are our 925 millibars, so close enough to surface winds just for direction. Let me make sure I'm getting my time stamp here. Oh, there we go. So we'll see the front will come through overnight tonight. I think around midnight, probably the best bet for when the front comes through here in central Pennsylvania. So that front comes through, we get the winds coming out of the north and west. So this is 12Z tomorrow morning. These are at the low levels, 925. If we go up a little bit to 850, and then we go up a little bit more to 700, you can see for the most part, winds are all coming out of the northwest. So that's a pretty good indicator that, given we're going to have a good Arctic air mass and the lakes are still warm, we'll definitely see a little bit of lake effect activity. But at the surface, as that high builds in, those winds quickly start to turn more northerly. So by the end of the day tomorrow, the winds are going to be coming northerly, and it's not going to be a very good fetch off of any of the lakes to get anything here in central Pennsylvania. So that high comes overhead, and winds will really slacken up for the upcoming weekend. As far as those temperatures go, we've still got the low clouds out here. I guess I should have started a little bit more with some current conditions. We do have that high pressure overhead. But with that cold front coming through Michigan now and a little bit of east-southeasterly flow, that's kept the low clouds in. I know the forecast today was to maybe hit the 50-degree mark. Not so sure that's going to happen now. I think we're still at 37 degrees out there right now. Clouds are still hanging around. They're trying to erode a little bit, but we would still have probably another hour or two minimum for them to erode and get us some sunshine. But by that point, especially with sunset being now before 5 o'clock, not looking too good. So that'll probably be a little temperature bust there. If we do look at western Pennsylvania, where they have had the sunshine, they're right on target. You got 48 degrees in Pittsburgh. I guess that's 45 degrees out there in Du Bois. So that 37 with a little bit of south wind and that fog, a little that low level moisture just coming into upsloping here into the mountains, not going to do us much good. So thought we could get one more kind of mild day before this outbreak comes. Not going to be the case. As far as temperatures going into this upcoming weekend, we'll just take a quick look at Moss. GFS, these are all from the 12Z runs. They're thinking we can get down in the middle in lower teens. They got 14 for us, as does the NAM. We'll see how, one of those, that'll be, I guess the coldest night's going to be tomorrow night into Saturday morning, of course, when everyone's going out to the tailgate lots. So it's going to be frigid regardless. I mean, at that point, 15 degrees, 18 degrees. It's going to be really cold when you're going out to the tailgate lots Saturday morning. So the good news is, though, it will be lighter winds on Saturday and probably a good bit of sunshine, especially the first half of the day before that next storm system does try to arrive in. So temperatures will come up quickly during the day. I mean, by game time, we'll be back into the 20s, and by the end of the game, we may be even above freezing, or at least right around freezing. So with winds being light and plenty of sunshine, things will maybe feel a little bit mild with some of the sun warmth. Now, the next storm system into Sunday is been a little iffy as well. I guess this is the latest run from the GFS. A lot less enthusiastic about precipitation and intensity from this storm system. I guess it was 48 hours ago. They were a little stronger and a little colder. Maybe we're going to be talking about some freezing rain potentially. A brief period of that late Sunday night into early Monday morning. I was a little worried about my flight Monday morning, but things have come warmer and less intense. So we'll have to see how that shapes up, because these little storm systems, they're just moving so quick. We'll just keep an eye on it, but things have definitely come down from that. The next little short wave that gets wedged in between the next high pressure that builds in when things try to become a little bit more mild. I guess I can show from the Weather Prediction Center what the probabilities were for any accumulating snow. Obviously, we weren't even really considering anything here in State College, but with that about 12 to 18 hour window of northwest flow over the Great Lakes, there will be some lake effect snow showers. And they're saying there's a pretty good chance they're going to at least get an inch or two, probably 1 to 3 inches across a long area. I didn't pull up the probabilities for anything higher than that. But they also did have the freezing rain accumulation. This was just anything more than a trace. So I guess this was for the storm system Sunday night into Monday, and this was before those 12D model runs came in. I pulled this off early this morning, and they were saying, I wouldn't rule it out completely, not looking good, but maybe there'll be, a trace of some freezing rain on some ridges, whether it's in form of drizzle or a light freezing rain shower. They were saying there's a possibility, and that was going off those runs 24 hours ago that were a little colder, a little bit more moist. So it's going to be pretty relatively dry here in State College with both of these storm systems bringing in marginal amounts. This was from this morning, so if you were just to take those 12D runs from verbatim, it's going to be a little drier than what they have here, which is really over the next week about a 1/10 to 1/4 inch of precipitation, which over 2 or 3 events is not going to amount to very much. So with that cold Arctic outbreak coming in, to no surprise, the next outlook through the 6 to 10 days that was issued earlier in the week for next week, basically now to the next weather briefing. I'm not surprised to see the below average temperatures, and then associated with that, likely to see some below average precipitation amounts as well. And if you just start looking at this, a little bit of a La Nina pattern maybe starting to shape up. You've just got drier weather all across the south, a wetter Pacific Northwest, maybe a little bit more with these Great Lakes systems coming through, bringing a little bit more precipitation to that region, than above average temperatures across the south. So that pattern's starting to shape up a little bit. We'll see if it holds. Looking like it might through December if you're taking verbatim some of the climate models. But we'll have to see how that goes out. So the details for my football forecast: tailgating tomorrow morning. It's going to be cold, but should be plenty of sunshine in the morning. With winds shouldn't be too harsh, so you should start to warm up pretty quickly. By kickoff, again, we'll have some of that sunshine. Temperatures maybe getting above freezing, maybe staying right around there. And then post game, it's not going to be as cold as previous nights tomorrow night with that next storm system coming in. We'll have winds will try and turn out of the south, a little bit light as that high pressure slides off to our east. Maybe a little bit of cloud cover coming in that'll help keep us a little warmer, maybe the 25 to 30 degree range. So I guess for early November, it's a little uncomfortable for the game on Saturday. But if this was later in the season, it wouldn't be probably too much of a story. That's all I had. If anyone wants to delve into any more model stuff, details, or any questions about anything else, I guess a quick shameless plug. I'll be talking more about specifically what meteorologists do in emergency management and this past hurricane season. Tonight, I believe it's 7:30 in 112 Walker, so if you're not doing anything, come out and you can ask me some questions about stuff. I have another presentation prepared for that. Otherwise, that's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions for Michael?
I got one. Final predictions for the game?
Oh, you make me do this on the spot here. I mean, right? We should have no problem. I'm thinking maybe like a 42-7 or something like that. It's probably a pretty good bet. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna jinx this now by going on the shutout route. But hey, we did it in the past. So we'll see where it goes. Yes.
Do you think Saquon will score 2 minutes within the first?
Oh yeah, I think that's a real good bet. If he's not scoring multiple touchdowns, then I'll be probably asking some questions after that. But yeah, I don't see any reason he won't be able to do that, because Parker probably has a good chance of getting him the ball pretty quickly at the start. So.
Any other questions? I have a question. What are your thoughts on the pattern heading into the beginning of Thanksgiving break?
Well, to be honest, for Pennsylvania, I'm not really sure at all. Talk about Florida.
Sure.
I haven't looked that far out into the rest of that. I guess we can pull up we can look at crazy GFS land at the end of the week and see what it looks like. So crazy, multiple, massive nor'easters in a row. That's 1, 2, 3 in a row in like a week out period. We can go at the end of the Euro here too and see what. We don't have that policy out yet.
I love this GFS.
And the Euro's got a storm maybe towards the end of the November too. We can take a quick look though at the CFS weeklies and see what we got here. I mean, I think the general thinking is that after this cold snap comes through, we'll probably start to moderate a little bit. I don't know how much here in the Northeast. This is suggesting we'll go back towards more an average, above average situation here. I know in Florida we're not getting too excited about very many fronts coming our way really through December. We're gearing up for another active fire season in Florida with the La Nina predictions. You just hold true to that, then by the time we get to February, March, we'll be in pretty severe drought conditions in Florida with wildfires everywhere, which is what we had last year despite the lack of La Nina. It was a little interesting. The last 2 years didn't really follow suit. So this year might not follow suit either, but all indications are pointing towards that, especially considering we just had a very wet summer. It was record-setting. I mean, many stations, Pensacola to Gainesville, down to Naples, all had the wettest wet season on record in Florida. So over the last 120 years. So a pretty wet summer, and just like the issue they had in California, you get all of that rain, you break the drought, and then because you get a dry season, you know you're going to dry out anyway. At some point during California is their summer, and us will be the winter time, and you just get all that extra growth. It's through the swamps. Once they dry out, you have all that extra growth from all that rainfall you had. You have some fire issues. But yeah, I mean, I guess you can take this and you could say maybe you're going to have a good trough coming in at some point during that Thanksgiving time frame. And if it does come through, you could get something. But that's a little interesting what the GFS is doing, although it's not too surprising. Yeah, full moon on that. So.
All right, any other questions? All right, then let's give a hand for next week will be Tyler Royce, talking about European weather.